Success transcends cities. As one of the world's most respected business leaders, I know what it takes. Join me now as I sit down with fellow leaders and we share our insights into how you can be successful. My name is Jeffrey Hayzlett, and this is All Business. Well, listen, longtime listeners know I love people who think big, and today's guest is no exception. Jeff Rosenthal turned his wild idea of a ski trip for young entrepreneurs and eventually turning it into the Summit, a series of invitation-only events with some of the top thought leaders and entrepreneurs in the world. He also co-owns one of the world's largest ski resorts in North America. Jeff and his business partners recently co-authored a new book called Make No Small Plans, Lessons on Thinking Big, Chasing Dreams, and Building Community. Jeff, welcome to All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Thanks for having me, Jeffrey. Appreciate it.
It's good. You guys have done well. You start with the book on a story on how you called, at that time, the Summit series and how it got started. Can you give the listeners a look at the chaotic beginnings?
Yeah, absolutely. We started the Summit in 2008. We were young entrepreneurs. We were in our early 20s, 23, 24 years old. And when you're that age and you're running a business or you're starting something new, you typically are learning by screwing stuff up and then hopefully not repeating those mistakes or finding like a morsel of wisdom from some mentor you found out in the world. And the idea was very simple. It was like, man, how cool would it be if we could throw an event and gather other young founders who are going through the same stuff that we were going through. So we cold called, we Facebook messaged, we got 19 people to say yes out of probably the 100 that we hit up to come on a free ski trip with us in Park City, Utah in 2008. And that event was poorly planned and there wasn't much going on and there wasn't much thought into it. We didn't have a big track record in hosting entrepreneurs or putting on conferences. However, the spirit of it, where there was no cherished outcome, we weren't looking to extract value or make money off of this. We simply thought, it would be amazing to make some friends and then, perhaps learn from one another. And that absolutely was true. And that was really the spark of Summit.
How did you connect with your business partners?
One of my co-founders, Brett, and I threw parties together in college. So I went to American University. He went to George Washington. After school, we both started small businesses and stayed in touch. And he had met Elliot, our other co-founder, through the real estate community in Washington, D.C. Brett was sort of like the original glue. He also went to high school with Jeremy, our fourth co-founder. So, Elliot on his own put together the very first trip in 2008. He had a business called Biz on Business, put it on his own credit card. And then by the second event, also in 2008, the team was starting to form. But DC, man, that was the origination.
Well, a lot of good businesses came out of that area in the tech world over the years, and of course, all over the country. But that was one of the highlights. As I said in the intro, I like people who think big. It's even the title of one of my books. In the book, you say no idea should go unspoken. What's the craziest idea that had become reality for you guys?
I think the craziest idea was like buying a ski resort and building a mountain town at 27 years old, 26 years old, when the idea started to germinate and we started to, go for it. The theme of no idea should go unspoken is that brainstorming is typically done in a box. Like when people think about, okay, what's a creative idea that I could have that would be amazing for my business or personally? And the world's kind of set up to shoot down really big, bold ideas. Your friends or your coworkers, they'll tell you like, that is crazy. That's what they're supposed to say. For us, when we would play storm, to use a term from my friend Daniel Plattner, we would just say the craziest thing that could come to mind, almost free association. And then it's fun. And then you're just like, bantering with your buddies to a degree. And then of course you end up arriving at a crazy idea that's actually executable. Man, we should really charter an ocean liner and build a temporary autonomous zone for a conference. And then you say two or three other crazy things. And then somebody else in the room is like, wait a minute, why can't you do that? Can't we just call a cruise company and charter a boat? And so then, that's the birth of Summit at Sea in 2011 for us as one of our event models. With no idea should go unspoken. It's just that if you're having fun and you're being an expansive thinker, It's a way more enjoyable creative process, and it actually allows you to arrive at something that will excite everybody else.
How soon did you abandon your other businesses, or did you, as this started to take off?
Almost immediately. The curve for Summit, first event, 2008, 19 people. Second event, 6 months later, it's 60 people. And our third event, within 270 days of starting Summit, was at the White House. So, we had an unbelievably exponential growth curve. And we started getting just amazing wisdom from the community that we were servicing, because we were the youngest and least experienced people in the room, immediately. So the personal growth and the professional growth that came from Summit was 1,000x from the other things that we were doing and working on. So some people, walked away from, I had startups that I stopped pursuing. Jeremy had a rock band, was on the Warped Tour, and he left music. Elliot left his business that he co-founded, BizNow. And, Brett had built an energy consultancy in Washington, D.C. that he almost immediately stopped working on. So I think that, we really were happy to burn the boats, as you will, and step off into the new land. We couldn't go back.
I'm a 4-time best-selling author myself. I know what that's like, selling books and getting that out. But I just read a great book last night, and I'm just excited about people who are still doing books, because sometimes it's a lost art, but the good ones are the really good ones. Let me ask you about community, because I always talk about content, community, and commerce, and those three go together. How important is building community to your business?
It's everything. It's the foundation of what we do. We're a generalist organization. We host a conference and build events for people of different disciplines, different backgrounds, different nationalities. And the more diverse the inputs, the more complex and impactful the outputs. To do that, to have that breadth and depth to where you can program on behalf of a wide community, you're in their hands in a sense. Like, the way that we curate is we curate the curated. We ask the experts that we're lucky enough to service and say, hey, what would you want to do? So from building the community and meeting new community members, to building the product and knowing the speakers and having the awareness of what great art or music or impact work is coming down the pike, it's 100% on the people that are around us. And we, as community builders, we just truly get more serotonin and dopamine from doing for our friends and seeing them succeed than from our own wins. And I think that that's an orientation that's really helpful if community is going to be your business.
But, a lot of people don't know this, but the more that you help other people win, the more you win in the end.
Well, that we call it the triangulation of goodwill. Like, if you're playing a game of trades, or you're looking for a reciprocity loop, it's extractive from the beginning. Your first step was really not in the spirit of generosity. And I think that if you give without the expectation of return, or if you just say, hey, I'm going to win the giving competition, I'm not going to worry about who's the better friend here. That's the way where you get to a place of abundance. And then you feel bright, whether or not it comes back to you karmically, you've built a favor economy surplus. So people want to help you. And you feel comfortable. Like, why wouldn't you ask somebody else to just help you? Because you live in a cycle of doing it for other people. So I think that, if you're, man, people won't help me, or that nobody wants to help, then you're going to be in a framework where you're not going to go and ask. I think that, if you just go ask and you're not living a life of generosity, it's also a one-way street.
Yeah, because we all run into those takers. I mean, I got people who like that all the time. They're just asking me rather than giving. The more you give, the more you get. That's the rule I've always lived by. Now, your summit described as the Davos of Generation Z. How important was it for the summit to set itself apart from the other events, which I think you guys did a really great job of, by the way?
Thank you, man. I think that's it's off by one generation. We're really the Davos of Gen Y.
Okay.
The millennial generation. Gen Z is a whole other Web3, interconnected, species. With a totally different set of philosophies. So actually, I think every organization has to fight for relevance. And one of the things that we think about a lot is how to bring in those 25-year-old entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs that we're just learning about. In terms of differentiation, I don't know that it was intentional. The product that we're interested in is not symposium stage. It's not, speakers lecturing to us for 10 hours straight in one room. Some of us want to go to talks. Some of us want to participate in dialogue. Some of us want to go to yoga class. Maybe you just want to cook food with the chef. Maybe you want to go on a hike, so we're all about curating fun, dynamic, shared experiences. And those could be intellectual, those could be social, those could be adventure. But that's what typically leads to sticky relationships. And that's our KPI. The most important thing to us is like, what lifelong relationship or what amazingly impactful relationship did you participate in one of our platforms and then come away with? Because that's priceless. That has forever value. And then all of the assets, whether it's like, something spectacular, like building a 1,000-person campsite on top of a mountain for 3.5 days, or chartering an ocean liner, or building a mountain town. It's really like being in service of this community of interdisciplinary, intergenerational people and doing things that's inspiring enough to where you're relevant for them. Because if you're doing also ran shit, or if you're kind of boring, then nobody's going to pay attention. And so I think the elements are all indicative of those principles.
What were some of besides money, what were some of the earliest obstacles in the early days of the summit?
Your own naivete and experience. It's the gift is that you're naive and inexperienced, and so you'll run at something crazy. But we had our teeth knocked out on every complexity up the ring that we had to face. We didn't go to Harvard Business School. We're not we're non-target, you could say. We have 2 college degrees between the 4 co-founders. And, the team of people that jumped on our pirate ship, went from 4 to 10 to 20 people that we would move around the world, renting houses as like our office and home and hosting in it. And we had this whole kind of Blues Brothers gonzo entrepreneurial journey.
Road trip, almost like road trip. Right?
And so it's hilarious and it's fun. And it's, really, it's a great story, but that you can't, you don't really have wisdom in your 20s. You have hustle. And you can't, once you operate from wisdom, you can sit back and think about your strategy and then execute against the plan. When you're a kid and you don't, you're not that killer, like this is how it works. So, buying a mountain and figuring out everything that had to do with actually closing on that transaction and raising that amount of money and, municipal bonds and EB-5 loans and, operating a 40-year-old asset that has a huge community fan base that believes that it's like their mountain, So pretty much, and every time that we so that just comes with the territory, man. If you're expecting to not get your teeth knocked out while playing professional hockey, it's just you're misinformed.
What'd you miss out in the summit? What did you say? Hey, look, I should have done that one thing in the summit that you wish you would have done.
I don't have any really regrets about it. The only thing I would say is I wish I invested in my friends more. When I look at the last 12 years, the people that I resonated with the most, who I really loved or spent time, they all crushed it. They all did incredible. And there's probably a reason why, you're inspired by those people and you want to spend more time around them and you learn from them. And that's because they're probably amazing. So
are you talking about the learning, or you're talking about because you would have made a lot more money?
I'm saying I would have invested in them from a financial perspective, because that wasn't our priority. This is a return on community before return on investment, entrepreneurial endeavor. And I don't think we missed out on anything. I think that we're unbelievably lucky. We got to run around the world and meet amazing people and learn from folks and focus our, lives on experiences. And I can't imagine a more fun way to spend our time. And then, 2 of us came out of it meeting amazing women that are now our wives and the mothers of our children. We punched way above our weight because of the platform that we, were lucky enough to start. So yeah, I can't share with you any regrets, man. Sorry.
You had mentioned that early on that some of those mentors popped up in your life. Who are those?
The early ones, first and foremost, I had my grandmother and my grandfather. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and they were a proper matriarch, patriarch partnership. And we had this huge family that would gather on a weekly, biweekly basis, 80, 70 people, aunts, uncles, cousins. And that feeling and idea of extended family really stretched to Summit in a sense. The feeling of what it's like to have that size of people that you can trust and depend on and love, that you are going to take pleasure in your successes, it's kind of a different phenomenon. It's a bit lonely as an entrepreneur, and it's competitive, and man, business is shrewd. Everybody's looking out for themselves in a sense to, it's mutually beneficial for you to succeed like it is with family. Then it's a different thing, right? So that was always how we thought about Summit. It was like, really, are these people that we'd want to have around our families, be friends with, regardless of their professional success? And then I think the most foundational, single person in those early days was a guy named Tony Hsieh, who's since passed away. He was the founder.
Tony's a great guy.
He was the founder and CEO of Zappos, and he was an incredible mentor and patron and friend to us. And when we threw our White House event in 2009, about a month into the Obama, presidential term, we brought 50, really tremendous entrepreneurs from all around the country. And what they had asked us to do was like, hey, who are the most influential under 40 entrepreneurs? Who are the people that, we have to know? And that was the prompt. And so after the event, we're at the bar, we're hanging out, and Tony comes up and he's like, hey guys, are there people here that you wouldn't have to your parents' house and, for dinner and be their friend if they didn't have their personal or professional success? And we were like, yeah, there's certainly, of course, but that's not what we were asked to do. And he said, well, they can't come anymore. Because if you're building a community, which now is 2022, you hear this language, but then at 24-year-olds, this was a revelation. If you're building community, culture is your most important thing. And so you can only really bring people in that feed and fill your culture. And we stayed up all night that night and really came up with the foundational principles about who we include in Summit. Are you, an innovator in your field, regardless of discipline? And are you a kind, open-minded person that we'd want to be around regardless of personal and professional success? And so, praise to Tony.
It's interesting. I know Tony. I was a judge on Celebrity Apprentice for a couple of years. Tony was one of the sponsors of that show and did his stick there. And we got to be friends. Result of it, he sat next to me on one of the finales one time. Shy, like introverted kind of guy. And I used to love to get together in Vegas. I'd always go see him and Penn Jillette. Penn Jillette was the other one I'd always go see when I'm in Vegas, have dinner or something. And Tony, we just sit around and just talk. And what a unique young man he was. And a lot of people would think he would have been much more extroverted, but he was I thought, a very shy kind of guy. Did you find that with him?
Of course, he was one of the only real introverts that he brought pleasure and joy by community, and yet was incredibly introverted. So it was a complicated setup to both be fed and discomforted by people in a sense.
It just shows you that everybody can win no matter who you are. And it's really cool. And he did a great job in that. In the book, you say authenticity trumps perfections. What do you and your other co-authors mean by that?
We're much more interested in the real person sitting in front of us than your best efforts in convincing us of what you think we want to see, right? Like if you're trying to be a character that in your estimation, the person in front of you is most interested in, then you're losing. If you can express yourself from the things that you're actually doing and you're actually passionate about, then it doesn't really matter if these people resonate with you or not. You'll find your tribe, you'll find your people. And, action begets more action. Once the search is in progress, something will be found. So to sit and wait and plot and ponder and tinker until the thing is perfect, you never get there. Nothing's ever perfect. And I think that especially when community engagement is important and you need other people to join your movement, you gotta take action and you gotta be prolific. And it's impossible to be, prolific and perfect. You can be pensive and do a few small things every once in a while, but if you want to go big, it's typically, wars aren't fought on one front in one battle. It's a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And, we're also inch by inch kind of guys. So like if you're, the way that we talk about it is that 99% of the entrepreneurs at Summit and in our community and ourselves personally, we're smart enough, we are smart enough and capable enough, and we can engage other smart people. And, together our tree has deep roots. And then there's 1% of entrepreneurs who are just freak show geniuses that can literally do it all themselves. Tony was kind of like that. Tony is that smart, and they're the founder, they're the CEO, they sign every check. They can do it all. So I think that if you can play a perfect game, then yeah, by all means, play a perfect game. But that's probably not the majority of people listening.
Exactly. And I always say a brand is nothing but a promise delivered. And we've all heard about living the brand, but in the book, you tell a story about how your team really did it in Miami. It's pretty unconventional. How did it come to be?
This was 2010. It's before Airbnb and VPRO and Zillow. And, this is before a resurgent, Miami that we see today. There was 40 or 50,000 I think units in Miami and Miami Beach that were unfilled at this time. Now you can't get a house or an apartment within 20 miles of the city. We would do from the start of Summit. There were 4 of us, and we all lived together. And then we hired 3 more people, and they lived with us. And we would travel to a new city every 6 to 8 weeks, and we would find a place that had either been for sale for a long time and hit up the agent and say, hey, this is who we are. This is the work that we do. We treat your house like a national park, leave no trace. And we do good work from it. We'll, of course, pay rent. And if you want to show the house, or if you sell the house, kick us out. And we did this in Nicaragua. We did this in Tel Aviv. We did this in London. We did this all over the US. We scaled from 4 people to 20 people in the house, to the point where we had like a chef that was shopping for everybody and cooking breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I think we were paying $8.33 per meal per person pre-tax, right? Because it was coming out of our paycheck. And so we had found all these different hacks, but we would find these just palaces in Miami. You're talking about Miami in particular. We found a house on Star Island that since, of course, got knocked down. They built some beautiful, mega mansion. But this property was gorgeous, and the house was like pretty, a little dilapidated, but old, kind of like Spanish style, probably 15,000 square foot indoor-outdoor mansion with like statue. Like, we were kids, we were in our 20s, and we were all pooling cash, and the company was pooling some cash. And I don't think I was paying more than like $1,500 or $2,000 a month for rent. And then our staff, of course, all were paying, $1,000 or $800 or whatever. And it was amazing because, like, one, we would host people once a week, and then of course we'd host people all the time. But this is before we really had built a vibe. And we'd have some entrepreneur, athlete, or artist come over to the house, and our whole company would ask them questions. We'd eat dinner. We'd make them jump on a trampoline or something silly and juvenile. The most impactful part, though, is that when you build so much bond and camaraderie, you get a lot of work done. And then at night, you're just chopping it up on ideas. You're at dinner, it's ideas. You're in the study, it's ideas. You're, like walking on the road to go to a workout. It's just, there's this constant touch point. And that leads to a lot of buy-in, a lot of passion, a lot of like meaningful connection to the company. And I think that today, especially in an era where company culture is suffering so meaningfully, it's more important to get out in the world with your coworkers, have fun, dynamic, shared experiences, because then you actually like each other. You actually trust each other. You want to help each other. It's not like because you get paid to be there.
Exactly. And what a great lesson to be able to learn. Jeff, thanks so much for being a part of All Business here. Jeff and Rosenthal, who we've been talking to, his business partners, recently co-authored a new book, Make No Small Plans, Lessons on Thinking Big, Chasing Dreams, and Building Community. Jeff, thanks for being with us on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Hey, at the end of every show, I like to talk about what I learned. And the key word that I learned from Jeff was being naive. A lot of times as business leaders, we go into something about not knowing what we don't know. He, in fact, said he traded off wisdom for hustle. And that's what it'll sometimes take to be successful in any business endeavor. So hats off to Jeff and his partners, Summit Series. That's what I learned right here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Hi Hi everybody, welcome to Bestseller TV. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. We're here with Chad Burmeister. He is the author of AI for Sales, How Artificial Intelligence is Changing Sales. Great to have you with us, Chad.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is your fourth book?
This is my fourth book.
Congratulations. Are they all on sales?
All on sales, yes.
So why AI for sales for the fourth?
Interestingly enough, in New York City, I worked for a corporation right out of college, and I was fired from my first sales job.
Okay.
So we all have a background and a past.
Yeah.
And my first sales job, I was fired, right? So for the last 25 to 30 years, I've dedicated my life's work to help taking sales to the next level of professionalism and performance. So every book, I continue to bring the best practices for sales.
Okay.
AI is the next wave of what every salesperson is going to be using. And in fact, many people are. They just don't know they are yet.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What do you mean they are? They just don't know they are?
Yeah, so at the conference, the C-Suite Network recently that I attended, if you were to ask everyone in the room, are you using artificial intelligence in your sales motion today? There'd probably be 3 or 4 people in a room of 200 people that raised their hand. And if you said, are you using a tool like ZoomInfo or DiscoverOrg, a lot of people would raise their hand.
Right.
Well, ZoomInfo DiscoverOrg happens to be heavily powered by artificial intelligence. So a lot of companies, a lot of tech companies use AI, and other companies use that technology, they just don't know it's powered by artificial intelligence.
Okay, so how is it powered by AI?
Let's say you have 1,000 customers. And right now, without AI, you might go service all of those customers equally, right?
Okay.
They're all the same. And that would maybe be a bad decision, because let's look at the entire customer base. So there's 1,000 total customers. 400 of them are going to churn next year. They're not going to buy any more from you.
Right.
600 are absolutely amazing customers, and they're going to double their sales with you. What if the AI could go out and look at the universe and tell you, these are the 400 that are likely not going to buy, these are the 600 that will, and by the way, there's another universe of 600,000 companies like the 600, you should go call on those. So it really helps you better analyze the big data and help you figure out where to focus and where to sell. My role is to bring technology to market and ensure that companies and sales leaders understand how to leverage the technology.
Okay, so do you tell them which technology to use?
Yes.
Okay.
So typically the way my company works is that we go into an organization, generally they're a seed round funded company, Series A, Series B, they've raised some amount of money.
Okay.
And now their investors say, go. And they usually have about 1 year to 18 months to either make it or not.
Okay.
Right? So we come in with data, like we just talked about. We come in with an email automation platform that will send and reply to emails, AI, powered by AI. We come in with a social platform that helps you send up to 100 LinkedIn messages a day, connect with people via LinkedIn and Twitter on an automated basis. And then we help you with a digital paid ad strategy to drive to those same, the exact right customers.
Wow.
And then finally, the most important piece is what we call agent-assisted dialing. And so traditionally, if you walk into a sales floor today and you walk around, you could hear a pin drop. And that's not how it should be, right? I've been in sales for a lot of years. Well, the reason that is because it's hard to get people on the phone these days. It might take 20 to 30, upwards of 100 dials to navigate gatekeepers and switchboards to finally talk to one decision maker.
Right.
With agent-assisted dialing, now you can push a button, pick your list of people you want to talk to, push a button, and within 2 to 3 minutes, talk to one of the executives on your list.
How so?
That's the magic
part.
part.
Work?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've created a platform with 500 human agents powered by technology that will make the phone calls into these different Fortune 1000 companies, whatever you're calling. It could be hotels, could be Fortune 1000, doesn't really matter. But these human agents will actually navigate gatekeepers and switchboards. The magic happens is when the decision maker picks up the phone, hey, this is Jeff Hayzlett. I'm the seller, I hear a beep in my ear. Hey Jeff, this is Chad calling from ScaleX. Did I catch it in okay time? So it's all done on the back end to Jeff, completely normal phone call. He just says, hey, this is Jeff. I say, this is Chad. Now I'm talking to a CEO of a big company.
Wow, the CEO is despite however, that phone rang, do CEOs typically pick up the phone? Isn't it an assistant, an EA, or?
You never know when they're going to pick up the phone.
Okay.
Right? If you have a list of 1,000 people and I call that list, maybe Jeff just finished his early morning breakfast and he's going in an Uber to another location and his cell phone happens to ring, I get him, right? Or maybe someone's just left. I caught someone actually one time at Universal Studios, and she said, "You know what, Chad? I'm really busy right now. I can't talk." But she remembered who I was. So then when I called her back the next week with the same platform,
right?
Hey, Angie, this is Chad with ScaleX again. Last time I caught you at Universal Studios. Is now a better time? She owes me that conversation now, right? Because I've followed up, where most salespeople don't do the follow-up.
And what happens if you do get an EA, an assistant, or something? That's the human you get?
Yeah, that's the job of these agents, right? They're going to get to the human assistant. Hey, can you please put me through to Jeff Hayzlett?
Okay.
Oh, he's out of the office today. Hold, please, I'll put you to his voicemail. In that case, our system would actually drop a voicemail for Jeff. This is Chad Burmeister calling from ScaleX. We provide data, digital outreach, social, and 7x to 10x the number of sales activities by your sales team for the saved dollar invested. Right? That would be my short, sweet message to Jeff.
Okay.
That way I can leave 100 of those in a day if I want to, or 500 in just a couple hours time.
Don't people on the other end of it know that it's a recorded conversation so it doesn't feel personal, so to speak?
You would think so, but when you record, just like this is a digital conversation that's taken from this live feed into the real world, same thing, right? Whether it's a recording or a live recording, it's the same thing.
But you're not saying their names, so I'm just curious how people, it must work if you get responses from it.
Well, truth be told, voicemail gets about a 2 to 3% reply rate traditionally. If you use some tactics and techniques that are trained in sales, you can get a 15, 20% reply rate. So one of the reps on my team 15 years ago, I still remember, he used, I call it the mystery message. So he'd go, hey, this is Cody calling from On24 was the company. And he said, can you call me back? Thanks. And that was it. And he got a lot of callbacks, right? This is Cody. And he does the stutter in his voice.
So it sounds authentic.
It sounds real authentic. And he would get a lot of callbacks. Now, you have to be able to dance when they call you back.
Of course.
Like, what is this about?
Right.
But,
that's
he would come in at 6 a.m. and leave those voicemails manually. Now he could have left them automatically.
So tell us, Chad, a little bit more about your background in sales, and your current company is ScaleX.
Okay.
So tell us sort of your journey along the way and how your industry changed with digitization and sort of this digital artificial world that we live in now.
I've always been, let's go way back. So my first job out of college, I mentioned, was here in town. That was a 6-month short-lived situation.
Yeah, you said you got canned.
I was canned.
What were you selling? Just curious.
Staffing services.
Okay.
So that was my first job. Well, then my second job, I'm a competitor, right? I'm going to figure out how to sell. And so what I learned is something very early in my career. Revenue equals frequency times competency.
Okay.
So how much you sell is how much frequency you do and how good are you at it.
Yeah.
So pretty simple conversation. So what I would always tell entry-level salespeople is get the F up, right? Frequency, because you're not competent yet. That's why I was let go from my job. So what do? You do repetitions.
Yeah.
So that's where I've always focused my career is how do I do way more repetitions than anyone else? Think about a basketball player who's out there dribbling to the right and to the left. I've heard of people that are pro players that will just kill everyone else on the court because they stay later. They do the practice. So that was always my belief strongly that if I can get frequency up, what turned out though is that the competency came with the increase in frequency.
The more you did it, the better you got at it.
I've worked for about 6 or 8 different companies, from RingCentral to Riverbed Technology to WebEx that was acquired by Cisco. And I've built teams of 50 to 100 people typically. And I really enjoy seeing those people, move through the ranks, and I've had a lot of success.
So you've always worked in sort of, I guess, tech sales or digital sales?
Pretty much. Early was transportation. So after the staffing experience, I worked for a transport company, Airborne Express and then Federal Express.
Okay.
And what I learned from my manager at the time was, hey, this is about an 8 to 10% margin business. And you can build a good life in transport sales, but you probably won't become rich. I was like, my dad's a doctor, my brother's a doctor. I don't know if that sounds like a good idea.
Right.
So I wrote an MBA actually, and did my MBA at Loyola Marymount University, and that's where I really, in about 2000 timeframe, learned that you can use technology to automate a lot of human tasks that are the ones that can be automated.
Right.
You can't automate some things.
Yeah, no, I was curious what that transition was like for you, pre-automation, now post-automation, and kind of how that worked. And I'd imagine there's such an influx of all this new technology coming at once. So how did you manage that in the companies you were at and sort of navigate?
Well, you need to be part of conferences and events. There's so much knowledge out there.
Right.
There's webinars, there's blogs. You really have to stay up on it.
Yeah.
So for the last decade, I've been part of the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals, and it's a membership base of maybe 250,000 people.
Yeah.
And, I like to think of myself as one of the thought leaders there. They have a top 25 inside sales award, and for the past 9 out of 10 years, I've received the top 25 vote there.
Amazing.
So staying in the game, understanding the technology, and deploying it and using it is how you stay ahead of the curve.
How has prospecting changed with AI?
Prospecting's changed because now you can decide who do you call, what do you say to them in a much more effective way. So for example, in fact, I've got this little app here. It's called Crystal Knows. And it looks at
Crystal Knows, like
Crystal Knows.
K-N-O-W-S, not Knows.
K-N-O-W-S.
Okay, got it.
So Crystal plugs into LinkedIn. It's a Chrome extension, and it looks at who the person is. And so ahead of this conversation, I actually looked up Jeff Hayzlett.
Okay.
Right? And so it says Jeff is spontaneous, confident, and a visionary. Pretty spot on from what I've discovered in working with him over the last couple of years. It also says that the relationship that Jeff and I have, it says Chad and Jeffrey both tend to be comfortable with risk, assertive and confident. However, Chad tends to be slightly more logical and practical than Jeffrey. So I think he probably would agree to that.
Is that true?
And so this tells you, if you were sending an email to Jeff, or you were calling him, or you were leaving a voicemail or negotiating, this gives you tricks and tips on how best to do that in language that Jeff would appreciate.
And that's all based on through connecting with your LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn.
Okay, yes. So it's through LinkedIn only? It's not through other social platforms? It looks at other social avenues as well and other data sources. Okay.
And it gets better and better because this is crowdsourced. So if you went in and you know Jeff, you could say yes, no, maybe so. And over time, this gets more and more relevant. So imagine a world where the email you get is very, very custom fit for you.
Right.
And it's not even done by a human, right? That's where things are going to happen over the next couple of years.
So that said, should people who work in sales fear for their jobs?
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Right? I've certainly heard that. The short answer is yes.
Okay. Appreciate the honesty.
Especially if you are not ahead of the curve with technology and your ability to connect human to human relationship.
Yeah.
It's putting a lot more stress and emphasis on the human interaction.
Right.
Imagine if your job is to come in and you just graduated from college, I go back to those days, and you just hit send all on an email, and that's your day job, then a computer can do that. So make sure that your day job isn't just pushing blast emails, right?
See, I would think that sales would be better for people who aren't good in the day and times that we're living in. Sales, it'd be advantageous to someone who's not good with the human connection.
Well,
because it's just such a small part of it.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
How do you say it? There's this job called SDR and BDR, Sales Development Representative and Business Development Representative. The SDRs and the BDRs have grown 500% over the last 5 years. That is the most risky job because with the technology we've talked about today, you can now automate a lot of those tasks for the quota carrying seller.
Okay.
So if you're a quota carrying seller and your job is to bring revenue into the business, you're really not at risk. The company still needs to sell.
Right.
But if your job is to set appointments, then you better be doing it in a way that's so unique from everyone else, or your job's going to be automated out.
So Chad, what are your thoughts on ethics as it relates to AI in sales?
Yeah, I've attended at least a dozen shows on artificial intelligence over the last couple of years, and it's really, really a big and important topic. So have you ever heard of the trolley car dilemma?
I just did.
Okay, perfect. So imagine you're driving the train and there's two sides of the tracks.
Okay.
On the right side, there's 5 people standing in the tracks ahead of you. On the left side, there's 1 person standing in the tracks. You don't have any brakes. As a human being, your decision, let's go to the side with 1 person on it. Okay, that's a decision you could make. Now, let's put more data into the equation. Now the 5 people on the right side are in orange jumpsuits. Okay, now the 1 person on the left side is a cap and gown, just graduated from high school or college.
Right.
So think of all of those thoughts that come into your mind. Now imagine giving that decision to a computer. The computer is never going to have enough inputs to make the right decision, right?
Yeah.
In that situation. So as AI starts to get deployed massively and quickly, somebody gets to play God in the situation of programming the AI. And so that's the scary part of everything that we just talked about, because somebody gets to make that decision. There needs to be AI ethics councils, and every Fortune 1000 company is probably going to have an AI person that's responsible for looking after who makes those kinds of decisions.
So they don't exist now, the ethics
A
department?
little bit.
Okay.
But it's
a fair
going
point.
to be a big deal. Yeah.
How do you hire in the ethics department?
AI
How do you interview
ethics
for an
person.
ethical job?
Yes,
That's an interesting
good
idea.
Question. On the positive side of that is, imagine a resume reader that right now a frontline manager might read the resume and it might say a certain name, and they might say, oh, just by the name, they don't even give the rest of the resume a real read.
Is that right?
Right? Male, female, certain backgrounds.
Yeah.
They might
Judgment.
say, oh, judgment, yeah. That's a positive side, because now the AI can read the words just like it read on my phone with Crystal Knows.
Yeah.
And it can say, oh, this is an A+ candidate. So there's definitely a lot of positives to AI. You just have to balance it with the ethical side of it.
Well, the book is terrific. It's very interesting because sky's the limit on AI, right? Who knows what's to come? It's constantly evolving. So book 5 to come? What do you think?
Book 5 to come for sure. This was really a compilation of about 21 different companies and how they use AI.
Right.
Our company's covered in a couple of chapters. The next book coming out in 2020 will be all about how do you deploy AI and effectively to bring health to your company and grow your sales better than you ever have.
Right. Well, it's a hot topic and we look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you'd like more information, just check out our website, csuitebookclub.com. That's c-suitebookclub.com. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Bestseller TV.
Welcome to C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg. By cutting down on their energy use, companies worldwide are boosting their bottom lines. Here to highlight the benefits of saving energy and explain how your company can do it too is Raj Avadeyapan, CEO of Energy Metrics. Welcome, Raj.
Thank you, Greg, for having me today.
Okay, so your company helps people reduce unnecessary energy wastage. How do you do it?
Not just energy. We actually do much more than energy, including maintenance savings, space usage savings, and also productivity savings. But yes, energy is our beginning focus. What do we do is we collect more data. We collect detailed data of utilization across the whole infrastructure and use that to bring insights for actually deciding where can we save money.
And what kind of results do you provide, and who are some of your customers?
Our customers range from big data centers all the way down to branches, bank branches, retail companies, call centers, trading floors, pretty much anybody, including corporate office spaces. Now, what we do is, for all of them, is we look at savings of energy, maintenance, and space. Space has become the darling of savings these days.
And how difficult is it for you to implement your solutions? Are there a lot of structural changes a company has to make to its building, to their infrastructure?
No, there are no structural changes that we need. What we do is we sit on top of existing BMS, which is building management systems, building automation systems, or energy power monitoring systems, and we collect data from their controllers. We just deploy one small gateway, and the gateway connects into their systems, and we collect the data and stream it across to our cloud solution. On top of it, information that is not captured by the BMS, we deploy low-cost IoT devices and get those IoT devices to stream data directly to our platform. So we get much richer data with which we can get a deep analytics and analyze. So using this kind of information, we have gone ahead and then been able to save 22% of energy, 12% on maintenance, and almost 1 to 2% savings on space costs, which is the biggest cost that corporates are spending today.
So finally, is that what makes you different from your competitors? Because there's a lot of companies right now that go out and tell people that they can save them money by saving their energy. Is that what makes you different?
Absolutely. We don't focus just on energy. We do energy, of course. Saving energy is a noble cause. But what happens is when you start looking at energy savings, initially the high usage areas tend to give high savings. But the moment you go into low usage areas, the relative savings that you get for the spend is so less that the ROI becomes difficult. So what we do differently, and that's what is unique about us, is we focus on energy, but we add additional savings using the same infrastructure so that people can actually save money on maintenance. The most interesting saving, for example, recently we were able to achieve was visits to the branches for adjusting hot or cold situations. Somebody takes a car, drives multiple miles, and then goes and spends an hour and charges a bomb. We avoid that completely by making remote adjustments of the location. So that's our unique proposition.
All right, well, thanks a lot for coming on and talking about it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching C-Suite TV Insights. I'm Greg Greenberg.